Look at our world today, and what do you see? I see a world that isn't about Christ, but all about me. I see a world that is tied up in chains, but still believes to be free, and I see a world that walks without light, but still believes it can see. I see a world that wholeheartedly yearns to retain reconciliation, but I see a world that walks straight past the cross and looks elsewhere for their salvation. I see a world that searches for peace in its soul like a detective searching for clues. And I see a world that walks straight past their Redeemer, something temporary they'd rather choose. I see a world that Christ came to redeem and save, but I see a world that is stubborn and prefers to define things in their own way. I see a world that has forgotten its first love, even with persistent repetition. I see a world that looks to the mirror rather than the Messiah for all their definitions. And I see a world that has defined love as something self-centered, mushy and vague. It's not definitive, yet there's so many ways to describe it, like a street preacher who has lots to say. And I see a world that's built truth on a foundation of opinions, cultural trends, deception and lies. I see a world that discerns what's right and wrong through their feelings and popularity, but refuses to use their own eyes. Love looks like telling our neighbour the truth, which is now shunned upon with hardly any objection. And our offences lead us to believe that no one can challenge us. But we forget that the Lord disciplines the ones he loves, and part of his perfect love is his correction. And I see a world like a phone on the underground that has evidently lost its connection to the one who himself defines truth and love, and the only one who embodies holiness in all of its perfection. And I see a world that likes the idea of God when they crave material things or some kind of favour. But I see a world that wags its finger like an angry schoolteacher when it's told it needs a saviour. I see a world that Christ laid his very life down for and loves deeply. But I still see a world that prefers something that will satisfy their flesh briefly. I see a world that runs after intimacy like an athlete ready to race and leaving the locker room, but it falls at the last hurdle and forgets the very one who formed them in their mother's womb. And I see a world that promotes its glory like an advert in Times Square. And I see a world that forgets the God who always is, always has been and always will be there. Because the truth is this: without looking to the one living God, truth and love is whatever we make it. And without realizing, we lose the purpose for our own life, like an employee who drags themselves to a job they hate just to please their boss. And truth, love and redemption are only found in the one living God, who never has and never will take a loss. And my prayer is that we know that love is not found in the shape of a heart, but in the shape of a cross. That love isn't found in the shape of a heart, but in the shape of a cross.